Welcome to episode 3 of the Executive Suite podcast. I am so excited to be here where we have candid conversations about life with high-earning self-made women over the age of 35. That's very, very important. I chose that age because, interesting enough, once you hit 35, by society and medical terms, you are considered geriatric. Interesting. I still feel young. I still feel really young. I know our guests do too. I'm your host, TeQuila Shabazz, founder and managing director of Key Virtual Support Solutions, a service that matches remote, administrative, and sales talent with executives and entrepreneurs. I've been a social entrepreneur for the past 10 years. The first 7 years, I spent a lot of time trying to figure things out and didn't make no money. The last 3 in my current role, I'm still figuring things out while being very profitable doing so. I'm also a new wife, mother to an adult daughter, student, mentor, coach, activist, and creator of everything that I see and want to be in my life. I often say that I fell into success being curious and doing things that made my heart jump out of my chest, right? Things that were scary to me. The only things I really truly fear is mediocrity, complacency, regret, and just existing, and then dying without living in purpose. Because of this, I've literally done and continue to do most everything I said I wanted to do, and I do them on my terms. Also, because I'm sorry, my daughter is calling me. Isn't that crazy? Also, because of this, my journey has been full of very hard lessons, but equally great adventures. One of the things that has helped me are the stories of other people, like our guest today. The executive suite conversations are important because we love to romanticize success and wealth. We've even been programmed to believe that it looks, sounds, and feels a certain way. While I learned from both men and women, our experiences may look very different, mostly because of gender expectations that are still argued today. Some of the examples, I find that women who have spent their early years building careers instead of families are often ostracized, or on the reverse, women who have built their careers and families at the same time and things fall apart, they're blamed for it. So, it's very hard being a woman in this space, building our careers, building our success, and doing so on our terms. So, what I want to do is to continue to grow and to hear the stories of phenomenal women just like myself that have built something out of their own struggles. I thought to create this space to share our experiences and help dispel stereotypes and misconceptions of what it means to be a high achieving, high earning, self-made woman, and to openly discuss what it took to get where we are, our fears, our failures, our sacrifices, our success. And I'm so happy to introduce Dr. Suzet Mckinney, Principal and Director of Life Sciences for Sterling Bay, and Jeri Simone Toliver, CEO of Flyy Credit Solutions. Hello, ladies. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Hey.
Hey. You guys know, you guys are mothers. So as I'm doing this podcast, of course, my daughter is calling me. She's trying to duo and talk to me. I'm like, girl, I keep declining her. And then she came on. Okay, I want to get right into it. I want you guys to introduce yourselves. I don't like to read bios. I like for people to speak from the heart about who they are. So basically what we'll do is just talk about who you are, what you do, which are two different things. Sometimes they coexist, but who I am and what I do, while they are closely interrelated, it is not, what I do is not everything or all of who I am. So I want you guys to talk about that, who you are, what you do, how you define success, and how you've achieved it. So I'm going to give you about 5 minutes or less to just kind of talk about that. I'm going to start with you, Jeri. Welcome, honey.
Hey.
Hey.
Well, welcome everyone to the Executive Suite. I'm so happy to be here. First of all, thank you, TeQuila,
Yes.
for
Thank you
inviting
for
me by.
coming.
I really do appreciate it. Just being able to share what life is like, right, as a small business owner, entrepreneur. Because I mean, who am I, right? I would say I'm more of a mom, small business owner, leader. and a friend, because we're more than just about business. I think that more than anything, success is all about having freedom. And I built a business all around that idea of creating not only freedom for myself, but for other people through the power of financial education, specifically credit. I think that I didn't know nothing about credit when I first started my business. I didn't know much about it. I just got started with it after I fixed my own credit and helped other people do the same thing. So I figured, well, there must be something to this, because once people start taking that first step into home ownership and building some wealth, it sets their life on a different trajectory. And then I realized the same thing with business credit. And so I think that financial education has been something that I've been teaching for years, because I do think that there's freedom in that. And our messaging, our company, our values, everything that we stand for and I stand for is all about having freedom. So when you say, what is success, Jeri? Success to me is freedom.
Yes, ma'am. And how have you tell us a little bit about your story, how you got here?
Man, so it's funny how it happened. I had been struggling with my own credit for forever, honestly. I don't know if y'all got the credit class, but I didn't get the credit class. I didn't get the credit 101. Did y'all get the credit 101 class, college, grammar school,
Nah,
high
No.
not
school?
at all.
Yeah, no, I
Not
didn't
at
get it
home,
either.
not at school.
I didn't get that either. And so I struggled a lot with my personal credit when I hit like my college years. And it was mainly just me using my credit, not paying it on time, maxing out my credit cards, and just not really understanding the credit system. So I picked up a book that was recommended to me through a mentor called The Richest Man in Babylon. I don't know if you ever read that book, but that
Yeah,
book is amazing. And it taught
yes.
me everything that I really needed to know about finances, about how to manage my finances. And one of the principles in the book was to own your own dwelling. The first step to wealth is owning your own dwelling, meaning buying your own home. So I went and I said, that's going to be my next step. I am going to go buy my first home for me and my two children. I'm tired of renting. I'm tired of my rent going up. I'm tired of not feeling safe. I'm tired of not feeling secure and free. So I embarked upon the journey of homeownership, and I went and started looking for homes, y'all, and got denied because my credit was terrible. I never even thought to go check my credit before I even went to go shop home. That tells you how ignorant I was, actually. So I went to go looking for homes, couldn't find one. They told me that I didn't qualify, and so I started repairing my credit. I hired somebody to help me with my credit, paid him $800, and he did absolutely nothing. He just disappeared off the face of the earth. And it was a really sour situation for me because, one, I didn't have $800 to spend. Two, I still had bad credit. Three, I still wanted to become a homeowner. So yeah, I just said, you know what, I'm just gonna figure out how to do it on my own. And then I went on the journey of, researching, getting myself educated, even getting certified in credit, and then just, creating a platform that teaches other people about the power of credit and how to really play and win the credit game so that they can save money, they can buy houses, they can create a life of freedom, all through just credit.
Yeah, I just read something or I saw something. I didn't get the chance to read it thoroughly yet, but I saw that in Florida, they just passed a law or looking to pass a law where they're going to teach credit education in the school systems in high school. I was like, man, you know what that would have done for
Yeah.
so many people in our community if we had that financial education very early. Let me ask you this, Jeri, in a time where so many people are popping up, credit specialists are popping up, and how do you stand out from in the crowd?
I think that one thing that we do very, very well is we have created community. It's not about credit repair. We started out with just credit repair. We started out with strictly just helping people with repairing their credit. And then it evolved into education. And here's why. Because what I realized was we were helping people with their credit, repairing their credit. getting them homes. But then what was happening was they were still repeating the same cycles. They were still paying the credit cards late. They were still maxing it out. They still were doing the things that put them in the position that they were in before they had bad credit. Now, don't get me wrong. Not everybody ends up with bad credit just because they're negligent. A lot of people end up with bad credit because they got divorced, they got sick, they lost a job. Struggle happened, right? Life is hard. And so, our job that we do very, very well is we educate people on how to use credit, how to manage credit, how to leverage credit so they can make more money, they can save more money, they can get more out of life with free trips and rewards, things that credit card companies want to actually give you. It's just knowing how to use it to your advantage that I feel a lot of people just don't teach people how to do. It's more of, let me repair your credit in exchange for some money. As a matter of fact, a company just got in trouble for this and shut down. A big network marketing credit repair company just recently got shut down for that type of credit repair idea. It's not really about credit repair for us. For us, it's educating people, empowering people, giving people the resources, the tools, and the education they need to make informed decisions in their everyday life. That is what it's all about, because I don't want you to come back to me once we're done, right? I want you to keep growing, keep prospering, and even give that education and information to other people in your life and the people that love you and the people that count on you too.
Absolutely. And not only did you buy a home, but you've helped hundreds of people buy homes, grow their businesses at this point. You've grown your business to almost a seven-figure business and really created the freedom that you desired. And you've done so free of predatory practices that we often see so much of in our communities in general. So I'm going to transition. Thank you so much, Jeri. I'm going to transition over to Dr. Suzet Mckinney. And again, Dr. Suzet, let us know who you are, what you do, how you define success, and how you've achieved it up to this point.
Great. Well, thank you so much, TeQuila, for having me. Jeri, it's awesome to be on the podcast with you today. So who is Dr. Suzet Mckinney? I am a native Chicagoan. I'm a public health official, a healthcare executive, a real estate executive, a thought leader, but I'm also a mom, a sister, a friend, a daughter, a supporter of women, and a lover of Chicago. Those are the things that get me up every day and keep me excited to go through each day doing the things that I do. How do I define success? I love Jeri's definition of freedom as success. I agree with that, but I also define success as also being able to elevate myself and my family to a different place, but also as a success for me is the ability to impact the lives of others in a positive way. I, for many years now, have really been proud of the fact that I have been intentional about the work that I do, because while my work has to be exciting and fulfilling for me, I also want my work to have a positive impact on the lives of others. So that's how I define success. But I think Jeri is onto something when she talks about freedom. And that's what I'm getting at as well when I talk about, just the ability to elevate myself and my family to, places that we haven't seen before.
Absolutely. And I think that we're living in a time right now where so many people are searching for that freedom. What we saw post-COVID with this great resignation or great reclamation, are people saying, you know what, I'm going to define success and create opportunities on my own terms. I also do it for the freedom. I also do it to help other people. So we are all aligned in that way. I want to get into this discussion. Dr. Suzet, before I do though, tell us a little bit about your walk, right? Because you talk about how I think there was a quote where you said you didn't plan on being where it is, but once you got here, you became very intentional about how you were going to show up in this space. So can you elaborate, tell us a little bit about your walk, what you studied, how you ended up in public health,
Sure.
and some of the things that you achieved?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. So people have often heard me say I got into public health by accident, but I stayed on purpose.
Yes.
And I say that because in college, undergrad, I studied biology. I was pre-med. I had every intention of going to medical school. I wanted to be a neonatologist. But around my junior year of college, I met a physician. I was in school in Boston. Met a physician out there, did an internship with him. And over the course of that internship, he would talk to me about his research. He was doing research on degenerative eye diseases in infants. And, to my young 19, 20-year-old brain, I thought that degenerative eye diseases were only for old people, not for babies. And what he helped me understand was that no, babies can have medical challenges and afflictions just like older people. And so, in my curiosity, I just started asking him questions and poking and prodding, trying to figure out really how he even discovered that. And he started to talk to me about his work in public health, his study of public health, his research. And what I realized was that public health really examines disease and other conditions that negatively affect our health, not from an individual perspective like day-to-day medicine does, but more from a population perspective. So I decided, excuse me, I decided that I wanted to pursue a master's degree in public health before going to medical school because that could potentially make me a better physician. Now, I also thought I'm a Black woman. We already have the cards stacked against us when it comes to being able to afford medical school, afford all of the exams and the preparation and the applications to medical school, but also making it through. So I said, well, I need to be doing as much as I possibly can to make sure that when I do apply to medical school, that I'll be someone that the admissions committees will say, oh, we need her here. So I said, I'm going to get a master's degree in public health. I'm going to find an area of public health that's interesting. I'm going to take a job, work for 1 year, and then apply to medical school. So now, fast forward, what I tell my mentees is you never know how life is going to come at you and how life will just change the plans that you thought you had laid out. So what I will tell you is that I graduated with that master's degree in June of 2001. Immediately started looking for a job in public health. 3 months after I graduated, 9/11 happened. So the job that I got in public health was working for the city of Chicago in their bioterrorism division to protect the citizens of Chicago from a bioterrorism attack should one ever occur here. My job specifically was around looking at, medical countermeasure plans, basically how we would distribute life-saving medications to the entire population of the city of Chicago, which at the time was right around 3 million people. I never imagined how intriguing that work would be. So, again, I didn't even know at the time that bioterrorism was a public health issue. So that's what I'm referring to when I say I got into it by mistake. When I realized the level of trauma and, other negative impacts that affect people in an emergency or a disaster situation, and then I realized just how much my work was helping people make it through, that was the thing that made me decide to stay purposefully. I felt as though I could have a much larger impact on far greater numbers of people, if I remained in the field of public health. So that sort of started me on this long term career now, well over 20 years in the field of public health. But after about 14 years of working for the city of Chicago and having led our public safety community through numerous emergency responses that we dealt with here in the city, H1N1 as an example, Ebola as an example, I decided I needed a new challenge because that's the other thing that's important to me in my work. I need a big complex problem to solve. I need something that is super challenging. Otherwise, I'm bored.
Yeah.
So after we had Ebola, which was supposed to be, the worst case scenario that never happened here in the United States, and then it did, I sort of felt like, okay, well, I survived that. What's next? And I was fortunately offered the opportunity to serve as the CEO of the Illinois Medical District, which for any of your listeners, if they don't know what that is, just think near west side of the city. It's the area where Rush University Medical Center, Cook County Hospital, there's the UIC System for Health, and the Jesse Brown VA. So it's a 560-acre healthcare and technology innovation district, the second largest in the country. So I had the opportunity to go there and serve as the CEO. I was there for almost 6 years, 5.5 years to be exact. And one of the things that I was working on was this issue of, 16-year difference in life expectancy if you live on the west side of Chicago versus the Gold Coast. And it's like, why is that? We have 4 amazing hospitals right here. So it can't be lack of access to a facility to go and seek care. Because among those 4 hospitals, they serve both the uninsured and the underinsured, the privately insured, the federally insured, every level of insurance or lack thereof you could think of. So it wasn't that. We had to dig a little deeper and figure out what the challenges were that were causing people to have such extreme life expectancy disparities, but also just general healthcare outcome disparities. What we discovered is that it was due to social issues, things like lack of access to education, lack of access to jobs, lack of access to proper transportation and things like that. So I won't go into the full detail, but essentially I had a pretty sizable portion of land in the medical district that was vacant. I was also trying to figure out best and highest use for development. And we decided on a life sciences innovation park. One, because it would attract life sciences entrepreneurs, biotech entrepreneurs to the area, but also because of the economic benefits. Because 40% of life sciences jobs only require a high school diploma or GED. Now, I will say that the medical district is also, a very special and unique unit of local government. So we had control over things that occurred in the medical district, the work that we did. And so I decided that if we built this life sciences innovation park, we could do all of the hiring or target all of the hiring for those 40% of jobs that only required a high school diploma or GED to residents living on the west side. And that would enable us to positively impact their healthcare outcomes and their life expectancy outcomes indirectly through their economic outcomes.
Yes.
Because let's face it, if you are worried about how you're going to put food on the table at night, you're not thinking about a doctor's appointment. You're not thinking about any of those things related to your own health. You're thinking about feeding your family. So that's how I got into this life sciences thing. There were some changes in, federal regulations around tax code, tax cuts, and there were some significant incentives in the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that incentivized real estate investors and real estate developers with investing and developing in communities that were, for all practical purposes, underrepresented communities. Well, quite literally, every single developer in Chicago was calling me about doing work in the medical district except one. Well, I was like, well, why aren't they calling me? So I came in, I requested a meeting and came in to meet with the one developer who was
Mm,
not calling me. And
mm.
basically marched into their offices and gave them all the reasons why they should be building a life sciences facility in my medical district. And they were like, all right, chick, cool. Well, here are all the reasons why you should leave the medical district and come work for us and run our life sciences division. So that's the story of how I wound up at Sterling Bay. So now I'm in commercial real estate, but doing life sciences, which is public health, biotech, healthcare, entrepreneurship, here at a real estate company. So it's pretty exciting.
I love it. That is a journey right there. And we're going to transition the conversation a little bit and talk about some of the things, the sacrifices, right, that we've had to make because it looks one way. You know, when people are looking in, they don't understand the sacrifices, the things that we may have had to give up. All of us are mothers. So we sacrifice things as far as time with our children. So I want to just talk about that a little bit. I'm going to switch it to you, Jeri, and ask, what are some of the things that you had to give up to get to where you are today?
Wow. I would say definitely time with kids, but that changed a lot when I got my priorities in order.
Mm.
I
So
was, I think I,
go back a little bit. Tell us about your family dynamic, your family setup.
so I'm a single mom. I've got 2 kids. My daughter is 10. My son is 14 today. Today's his birthday.
Ah,
And I started my business like 6 years ago. And one of the hardest things about starting a business and being a mom is that there's so much that you have to put into building a business, especially the first couple of years. It's literally like birthing a new baby. it requires so much of your attention, your time, your energy, your creativity. It's draining on you emotionally, mentally, even physically. It's draining to build a business. And putting all of that energy into the business, I think, took away from the energy that I could have put into my children. And so I think that my daughter, especially, she's like a mama's girl. So she was like really missing a lot of our intimate time together. And so I think one of the things that really helped with that is just getting my priorities together. My son, he's kind of indifferent, like most boys are. But he, I think, was feeling some of it too. I think one of the things that kind of balanced that out, I would say, is not having to go to a full-time job anymore. So that helped a lot because for a long time, I didn't really spend a lot of time with my kids. I was working night jobs, going to school during the day. I had a lot going on. And so I missed a lot of my children's earlier years in life because I was just so busy, just busy with stuff, trying to grow myself and take it to the next level and have success, chasing success. When the real success I feel like I should have really been chasing was spending more time with my children and nurturing them more. But I couldn't because I was spending so much time at work. So, I think building a business has its ups and downs. It has its pros and cons. But building a business from scratch, from day 0 to, let's say, 2 years, I think was the hardest for me because it did require a lot of my time, a lot of my energy just to build the business. And but it also helped me, like I said, create some priorities. So my kids, my family become before anything now. You can't even call me at a certain time and I'm not going to pick up the phone if I'm with my children. So they know, and that I send that message to them that they are more important than a meeting, or they're more important
yeah.
than a phone call. They're just more important. And I never really set those boundaries before, and not setting those boundaries really created some struggle with my relationship with my kids. But once I created those boundaries, it helped so much. And now I don't feel like I'm sacrificing anything anymore. It's funny how that works. I don't feel like the unnecessary pressure to always answer the call or always answer the email anymore because I've created those boundaries around my values, about what I really do value, which is my children. But I would say that's like the biggest struggle just as a mom, is balancing act of spending time with my children, giving my business the energy that it needs, giving the team the energy that it needs to grow, and my clients. It's just this constant balancing act that, if you don't have boundaries, can get very, very tricky, I think.
Yeah, and I feel like with myself, my daughter is 28 in a couple months, and I feel like when I realized the importance of boundaries, she was going to college.
Yeah.
When I realized what was important, or, not taking that phone call, or, yeah, she was already on her way. What would you tell? I have this, we're in a time where everybody now, this is also something that has come with this search for freedom, where everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, but they don't really understand what it takes to be an entrepreneur. What would you tell someone that has children and they want to get into this entrepreneurship lifestyle?
Wow. Yeah. If you have kids, I would say prioritize, know your priorities before you get into business, because what you may not realize is that if you don't have your own priorities set, your clients are going to create the priorities for you. They're going to be calling you, expecting you to answer the phone, expecting you to text back in 2 minutes. If you don't create the boundaries, if you don't create your own priorities, your clients, your team will fill in those gaps for you.
Yes.
And you will find yourself stressed out. You will find yourself overworked. You will find yourself even angry sometimes, frustrated. And that frustration spills into your family life. It spills into the energy that you give your children, your spouse, or whoever you're with. Honestly, if you don't nip that in the bud, it's going to just, what's the word I'm looking for? It's going to like
fester.
Yeah, it's going to just dry you out, right? You're not going to have anything else to give at that point, because you're just so consumed with success and money and whatever social media says is success. It's just like this unrealistic expectation that a lot of people have when it comes to building a business anyway. So set your priorities first. What are your priorities? Is it God, your children, your work, your personal passions, your health? If you don't have those priorities set, you're gonna run yourself into the ground. Easy.
You're gonna drown easily.
Easy.
And I want to bring that to you, Dr. Suzet, because I know that just from listening to your backstory, right, and all of the responsibility that you have, and I know that you have a daughter. How old is your daughter?
She's 20.
She's 20. So tell me a little bit about what it was like for you as she was coming up, holding so much responsibility.
Yeah, I mean, I can't sugarcoat and say it was easy. So the first thing is, I tell people my daughter and I started school together. We started school on the same day. She was 3 years old, starting pre-K, and I was in my early 30s. I think I was 31, starting my doctoral program. So mommy's going to school to become a doctor, and she was in what do they call it? Pre-3?
Pre-K.
Yes. So, we started school together. Fortunately for me, I was married, so I had support at home, and my parents lived here locally, as did his mother and several of his siblings. So I always had that type of support from family members, both, my husband and extended family members during those very early years. But the moment I finished that doctoral program, my career skyrocketed, and it progressed so quickly that I wasn't even prepared for how fast it progressed. Very quickly, I started building, a national reputation for myself, which then caused me to have to travel a lot. So that's where I lost out on time because I was traveling so much and my daughter was so young. I think when I finished my doctoral degree, she was 8 years old when I finished.
Mm,
So she was still very young.
yeah.
That's like third grade. And I was traveling 2, 3 times a month. So that was difficult, missing out on that time with her. When she was 10, I was asked to come to Washington and take a senior level role within the federal government, which I did. And I did not move my family. So I commuted. I was flying back and forth to Washington, D.C. every single week. My daughter was 10 years old.
Yeah.
So I would be home Friday. I'd come home Thursday night. So I was home Friday through Sunday, and I was on the first flight Monday morning back to DC.
Mm,
So, again, that time, I think as time progressed, I learned how to just incorporate balance. So to Jeri's point about clients calling all the time, or your office calling and wanting you to do something, or something so urgent, so I need you to take this call at 7 p.m. Okay, I took those calls. So even if I was out doing things with my daughter or my husband at the time, whatever it was, I would take those calls from the office. But my counterbalance to that, if I was in the office and my daughter called, I took that call, plain and simple. And people used to, so, there's a setting on your cell phone that if you have your phone on silent or if you have it face down, it'll light up if it
yeah.
rings or it texts. I activated that setting. So if it lit up, I knew that was my kiddo.
Yeah.
And I answered her text. I answered her calls. I mean, if I had to excuse myself for 2 minutes or 5 minutes while I stepped out and took her call, I did that. Because guess what? As soon as I hang up this phone, I'm right back. You
Yeah.
know, and everybody knew the long hours that I put in. So that was the balance that I learned. I think what I sacrificed was I spent so much time trying to do for everybody else, my daughter, my extended family, my office, my professional colleagues, my staff. At one point, I had 275 staff under me. Um, and then, quite frankly, just the citizens of this city. There
Right.
was always more work to do to protect our city's residents. So I spent so much time trying to do for everybody else that I forgot how to do for myself.
Mm,
And I'm still trying to relearn those lessons,
yes.
you know.
Yes.
So I would say that was the ultimate sacrifice. I recently went to a relaxation specialist,
Mm,
and for the entire hour and a half session that was designed to, take you into deep relaxation, my body was fighting the relaxation. So, we used to have a joke in my office. One of my staff members came in one day and she came into the office early, like 7:15, 7:30. And when my assistant got there, and this woman just sat outside my office. So when my assistant came in, she said to the lady, "What are you doing here? Like, Suzette's not here yet." And she said, "Oh, I know. I just wanted to be here so that I could catch her before she gets on her skateboard for the day." And my assistant looked at her and said, "Honey, she comes in on a skateboard." And that was like the joke in our office. So it was a joke to everybody, but it was true,
Yeah.
But that skateboard was me trying to be all things to everybody except me.
Yes, that is a word. And executives that are viewing this, feel free to drop your comments in the comment box right now. Some of the things that are being said, great information. There's so many jewels. Sending a happy birthday to your son, Jeri. that sending that love. To your point earlier, Dr. Suzet, in regards to some of the issues that you found when doing your work, someone said that it's because, or Larita said that we live in a food desert, and that's a big reason why we're seeing a lot of health disparities. So people are tuned in and they're loving this information, but I want to keep this going. I think self-care is huge, and I think that it's a big sacrifice that we all tend to make when we are overachievers, high achievers. I see this across the board. I've seen it with the guests that I've had in the past. So how do you prioritize self-care, Jeri? And what does that look like for you?
For me, it's about scheduling it. So I actually schedule this self-care time in my schedule. So every 2 weeks, I'll go get my nails and my feet done, or I travel pretty often, mainly because yeah, I'm all over the globe, and I'm like a jet setter, and mainly because that's really what like de-stresses me. I like to get out in the world. I like to experience new things. I like to meet new people. And traveling around the world does give you a different perspective about life. You do, see people that may not be as fortunate as you are. I've been to islands where you can only run water for like 5 minutes before you have to cut it off. And you don't feel that way when you're back home in the US. It's like water abundantly, but it gives you a different perspective on life. So I do travel very frequently, and that does help me stay happy. It helps me stay stress-free, because I feel like at that point I'm living my life the way I've designed it. Because if I'm scheduling it, if I'm making it a priority to take at least one trip every quarter, that's good for me. That's all good for me.
Yes. So doing things like getting your nails done, traveling, that's the way you reset.
Yeah, I work out every Sunday. I don't actually, on the weekends, I don't actually get on social media. So I actually am not on social media often at all. I'm more of a post and go kind of person.
Yeah.
Mainly because social media is just full of noise.
Yep.
And I do find that noise can be very disruptive to your productivity. And if you want to get results and if you want to get things done, then social media can suck your time dry. You just look up and you're like, how long was I scrolling? And so I'm not I'm very intentional about how I use my time. So if I'm wasting time, I am doing it intentionally.
Yeah, and it does take up a lot of headspace. I just seem to, it's like people tell you got to be on LinkedIn, you got to be on Instagram, you got to be on Facebook, you got to be on TikTok, and it's like I can't. Right? So I'm a post and go kind of person, but very similar to Dr. Suzet. I spent a lot of I started life real early. I'm talking about adulting really early at 16, 17 years old. I became a mom. And so I often say this, I was a mother before I understood what it was to be a woman, before I understood how to prioritize myself. So that's why when I looked up, I was trying to figure things out. And by the time I looked up, my daughter was off to college. But by the time I figured out life, she's a full-fledged adult, right? So I'm like you, Dr. Suzet, where I've had to learn how to relax. I've had to learn how to put myself first, because I've spent so many years, few decades actually, putting other people before me. So it almost felt weird at first doing it. Like you said, you had a hard time turning off. It was the same exact thing for me. And I'm still learning. Wow. I'm still learning what feels good to me. And, so Dr. Suzet, how do you prioritize self-care now that your daughter is 20 years old? It's you.
So, it takes multiple forms for me. So similar to Jeri, I also get my nails done. I get my hair done. But, let's be real. So we're being real, right?
We're being real. Let's go.
So, for those of us who, like me, who are not entrepreneurs, but we work in I'll just say structures, whether those are government structures or corporate structures, as you climb, there's a lot of people that come for you,
Mm.
You'll notice in the beginning when I talked about who I am and I said, fierce supporter of women.
Yes.
I said that because I have been in the position where, women have come for me and tried to tear me down. So, that being said, another large component of my self-care is figuring out who were the people in my life who did not mean me well, who did not have good intentions for me, who were only in my life because of what I could do for them or give to them.
Yes.
So a big form of self-care is always being conscious about who's in your life and why, and only keeping those in my life that are genuine and who truly care for me and bring me joy. And, anyone who knows me, anyone who comes into contact with like me and my girlfriends, when we are together, we are singing, we're dancing, like we're telling jokes to each other. Like it is a full-fledged good time. Because that laughter for me is a big part of self-care. It's like being in this just state of happiness and joy and bliss. So I would say, in addition to hair and nails and the occasional trip to the spa, just hanging with my girls and having a good time, because trust me, we know how to have a great time.
And you know what? I can attest to that with both of you. But when I met you, Dr. Suzet, I met you in a setting where you could just kind of exhale, learn, and have a good time. Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, she cool. This is my bestie right here. Right. So I met you in that way. And that segment, that transitions perfectly into the next thing that I want to talk about, because you're right. Women will. It's a mean girl culture that never goes away. It's like, are we still in high school or what? So relationships are hard across the board. But I feel like it can definitely be equally, if not more challenging with women, right? The competition, so I want you guys to define sisterhood and how it is showing up in your life. You talked about it a bit, Dr. Suzet, but I want to delve into what that journey has been, because, we'll go around, this is my sis, this is my girl, this is my this. But what I found is that as I've evolved, like you, I've had to consistently check who was in my space, because they're not who I thought that they were.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about sisterhood. Take the wheel, who's ever.
I was just gonna say, the whole thing about the whole mean girl thing, it starts young and it doesn't seem to ever stop.
Yeah.
And for me, I had an experience years ago, like very, very early in my career, to be honest, and it was around being accepted into doctoral school. And this woman just came up to me uninvited, just walked up to me and told me that I didn't have what it took to be a doctor. I was like, oh,
excuse me.
I was like, oh, okay.
And you are?
Well, it's funny. I can be pretty quick-witted, but I've never been a mean person.
Yeah.
So I just said, okay. I said, thank you for that. I appreciate it. I said, but while you're here, can you help me with something, please? Because, I'm struggling with something. I just need a little help. And she was like, oh, what is it? And I had my acceptance letter on the desk, and I held it up. I said, I'm having trouble reading something. Can you tell me what this says? Because I believe it says, congratulations, you've been accepted. So that was my quick wit situation. But in all seriousness, to your point, TeQuila, about removing people from my life, I decided that in doing so, I don't have to be mean about it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
sometimes those people, you encounter them in places where you cannot necessarily get rid of them physically from your presence, but what you can do is guard what you say in their presence and how much of your inner self you expose to them.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I've had to adjust that way. I mean, for me, sisterhood is, that true, genuine uh, relationship among women, not just relationship, but interaction
Yeah.
among women, where the people you are in sisterhood with are the people where you can be your complete self, your most vulnerable self, and they will neither exploit, take advantage of, criticize, or demean you for
Yeah.
being who you are at your deepest, innermost part of your core, your being. And that's what sisterhood is to me. The women that are in my sister circle, I can call them for anything and everything. The other thing that is really inherent in my relationships with my girlfriends, we're all busy. We don't always have time to talk. I cannot talk to you for 6 months. And
Right.
when we talk again, we pick up right where we left off. It's like there's never been a time gap.
Mhm.
So, that's true sisterhood for me. And again, like I said, true sister friends embrace all of who you are.
Yeah.
You know, I have a core group of girlfriends, and at one point I talked to them about my concern over my daughter being, the only child, and how would that affect her as she grew up and grew into adulthood. And so I decided that I needed to show her what it looks like when friends become family. My
Yeah.
girlfriend said, okay, next girls' night out, bring her. So
Yeah.
at 11 years old, my daughter was at girls' night out with me and my girls.
Yep.
As long as we had plans where, it was appropriate for a kid to be there.
Mhm.
And she was there and she just integrated right in. We didn't change who we were or how we interacted with one another because she was there. And I think through that experience, she was able to see what it's like to truly be in sisterhood with
Yeah.
other women,
Yeah.
even though those other women have no, genetic relation to you.
Mhm.
Has she ever, and my executives who are watching, Larita said, friends are family you choose. I agree with that. My executives that are watching right now, specifically women, what is sisterhood for you? Right? I want to see what your comments are. Drop those in the box. But Dr. Suzette, has your daughter ever in your relation with your sisters, has she been witness to having to separate yourself from people that she may have known you to love, or how seen you overcome something that may have been challenging?
No, by the time that I brought her in, with me and my friends, I had kind of figured out
Who that
who
who the
who
core
was
people
genuine in my life and who wasn't.
were? Mhm.
But I have talked to her about those things
Yeah,
because I've had to help her understand that everyone who's in your life today may not be there all the time. It's
yeah.
funny because she now has her own relationship with my friends. I'm like, hold on. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not mad about it. I think it's great. I do think that that's probably the reason why all of her friends tend to be a tad bit older than she is.
Mm,
But she was already mature for her age.
yeah,
So her conversation is just elevated, at times, and she sees how we get together and have a great time, and we laugh and we dance and we're silly together, and she's the same way with her friends.
Yep. And I thought it was really important. I had the type of mom who moved a lot, so she moved every few years. And so, again, I learned later in life the value of sisterhood and being very discerning about who I let in my space, because I'm a very inclusive person. I want everybody to be involved. I want everybody to get along. And so I had to learn the hard way. But one of the things that I think I did really well with my daughter is making sure that, some of her friends she's known since she's 2-3 years old, they grew up together, and making sure that she had that stability and these solid sister friends. Jeri, what about you? What's been your relationship? What's been your experience in this space?
I would say for me, I have a lot of great friends. I have a lot of, long-term relationships that I've nurtured for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, sisterhood, friendships, it's about love, honestly. I've had situations with women that, show me jealousy, things like that, like negative type of emotions towards me, but I still love them. I only carry love in my heart. So I don't really, I guess, pay much attention to people that don't like me, because I love you anyway. That's not my fault that you don't like me, especially if you don't know me. So for that reason, I've never been, I guess, one to care about what people think about me, because they don't know me well enough to even have an opinion about me. And then I also realized that I also don't care what people think about me, because a lot of people actually don't think. Once you realize like how minimal, thinking people actually do, then you realize that it's not even that important to care what people think, because people don't care about you. That's the funniest part about it. We always think that people are judging us, or people are feeling some type of way about us, or hating on us, but most of the time people don't care about us. They just care about themselves. So I've just learned that if it ain't love, if it's not love, there's no love here, then there is no sisterhood, there is no friendship. Love to me is about being accepting, it's about being kind, it's about being patient with someone, it's about being loving, that's compassionate. That's what love to me is, and what it looks like. But when you've probably never experienced it before, you may not always be able to identify it. And so I think that's probably a struggle for a lot of people too. I was raised around people that are very loving, very compassionate, very open. So I never felt like I could never be myself around people. I was raised to be myself. So because of that, I carry love. So I surround myself with people that carry love, and we love each other, and it works. It just works like that.
You attract what you are. I believe that.
Yeah, I believe that.
Wow. Speaking of love, I'm about to ask that question. Speaking of love, what are some of the obstacles that you've experienced in intimate relationships as a woman that is financially secure, right? Because that in itself comes with a lot of challenges. There's a lot of stereotypes that, your man needs to be making more money than you. He needs to be doing more than you. He needs to be, and he needs to fit a certain narrative, right? So let's talk about those challenges. Dr. Suzet, you mentioned being married. Kind of tell me what your journey has been in that space.
So I was married for a really long time. I'm not married anymore. I was married for 22 years.
Wow.
Which is a long time. But before I, hop into that, let me just, continue on with what you just said. You said, a stereotype about how much money, the partner needs to make, and what type of job they need to have. I don't think those are stereotypes. I think that those are expectations that we come up with and bring to a relationship, which are, in my opinion, unfair to the person that you're projecting those onto, but it's also unfair to you and the relationship, because you set yourself up for these high expectations, and then when the person can't deliver that, there's this huge letdown. And so over the course of the 22 years that I was married, and the 3 going on 4 years that I have not been married, one of the things that I have learned is most important is communication, respect, and compromise. You have to respect what the other person brings to the relationship. Why did you get into that relationship in the first place? Was it the type of job they had and the earning potential and all of that? Or was there something else that got you interested in that person? Communication is probably the single most failure point of any type of relationship. Just the ability to be honest and to tell people how you feel, to be honest about what you're able to do, what you're able to bring to the relationship, and what you're not able to do.
Yeah.
And then I would also just say compromise. I just looking at myself and, how I was in my marriage as opposed to how I am in the relationship that I'm in now. It's about compromise. Everything can't be your way all the time. I
Right.
used to hear, do you remember that saying people used to say, it's my way or the highway?
Yeah.
No, it's really not.
Yeah.
So just, being able to compromise and, figure out, okay, let's find, if it's not the happy medium, let's find something that works. It may not be exactly what I want. It may not be exactly what the other person wants, but can we find sort of an agreeable point that we can both agree to? You know what I'm saying? So those have been really big issues for me. Did I want my marriage to end? Absolutely not. But it did. So for me, it was just all about figuring out what I could learn from the situation and how I could and can, be a better partner moving forward. Um,
What did you learn from your marriage? What were some of the things that you really learned from that?
those 3 things that I talked
Those
about,
three
the,
things.
the compromise, because there was a time where I was like, no, I don't want to go to church at this time. I want to go to church at this time. And at the end of the day, it was like, are you going to church or not? Like, what difference does it make what time you go? But at one point, I was very hell bent on only going to one particular service. And now, after I looked back on it, that was so silly. It
Yeah.
was just silly,
Yeah.
and it didn't make any sense. But that was me trying to have things my way as opposed to compromise. Um, Also the communications piece. Like my ex and I have had conversations post divorce, where he had said, "Oh, I wish I had not been, afraid to just talk to you about ABC, XYZ." You know what I'm saying? Um, so yeah, those were huge lessons for me that I learned from that I now take into, what I do now moving forward.
Yeah. And what about you, Jeri? I know that you're in a long-term relationship, correct?
Yeah, I'm in a long-term relationship now. I think it all boils down to understanding. I think that's what it all boils down to. And to Dr. McKinney's point, expectations.
Yeah.
People generally get into relationships with people with these expectations that mostly we don't even know they have. That's the interesting part. Is that they have these expectations of how you should behave, how you should act, how you should treat them, but you don't even know what those expectations are yourself. So I think communication is very key, because I think since we started communicating more, being more open, and him feeling like he could trust, I think that was a big key, because it's hard to build a not a business, even a business, a relationship without trust. And I think that was probably the biggest key with my current relationship, is just finding understanding. In my previous relationships, I think it was more about finding balance and creating
Mhm.
boundaries in my previous relationships, because I think one of the biggest complaints I used to always get from the guy that I was dating previously, my daughter's father, is that I always made him feel like I didn't need him. And I didn't know what that meant at the time. Other than that, I felt like I was just a very ambitious person, and that I just felt like it was all on him, right? But then I realized, well, no, it was me too. I had my own part in that too, that made him feel like I didn't need him. And so that's one of the main reasons why our relationship didn't work, was because mainly of that he didn't feel like I needed him. And so that was, I think, something that I learned, was how to help with that, because I guess I don't know how to make someone feel like I need them. I still struggle with that, honestly, because
Yeah.
I am honestly just an independent person. That's just who I am. That's how I've always been. My mama will tell you I've been independent since I was a baby. So it's not something that I just purposely would do. It's just who I am. And I think I've actually found that in my current relationship, that he likes the fact that I'm ambitious, and he's more willing to help me rather than complain about it, I guess. So it's just finding balance and understanding more than anything else, so that one person doesn't feel disrespected or feel like they don't have any value in the relationship.
Well, I'm a few months off from getting married, right? So it's we've gone through premarital counseling, and the top thing, the number one thing, I guess she asked us, what is that secret ingredient? And I'm paraphrasing that secret ingredient, and we're like, communication or this, we're saying this, and then she said compromise. Is all those things are important, communication, but compromise, to your point, Dr. McKinney, because when I look back in my relationships of past, I definitely wasn't really willing to compromise. I had that whole Eartha Kitt mentality. Compromise for what? She has this infamous quote where they're asking her, "Are you willing to compromise?" She's talking about how she likes everything her way, and it's like, compromise for what? And I would walk around with that proudly, and definitely some issues around communication. Right? Everything was a debate. Everything was a debate. Everything was a battle, which then in turn comes off that there's no respect. And I was quick to tell somebody that I don't need them. Right. So I was quick to right. But that, again, that goes back to lack of examples, lack of having conversations when we're growing up. I think that we're not having conversations with our children or giving examples around what, not just finances, but marriage, having a family, being productive, citizens in our community, the things that the work we're going to do. We don't have those conversations, and we're placed out into the world to figure these things out. Right. Yeah. So I took a long journey of hard lessons and trying to figure these things out. So I'm with you with the understanding, the compromise, communication, respect, things that I'm still learning. But I'll catch this tongue real quick, like, because I'm with somebody that ain't having it. He ain't having it. And I think Dr. Suzet, we've talked, Jeri, we've talked. Walida said lack of healthy examples is definitely crippling. And going back to sisterhood, Adnan says sisterhood to me are the ones you can just be yourself with, and they are not looking for anything from you, and you are there for them, and they are there for you whenever needed. I absolutely agree. I want to ask this question because I think that so many, whether you're an entrepreneur or C-level executive, working for another corporation or running your own corporation, it can be extremely taxing. And then at the same time have personal challenges that are going on. So tell me about a time where you had to face an extremely challenging personal dilemma that spilled into your professional life and how you overcame that. Because I think that's a big thing that people are faced with. A lot of issues, maybe, or issues at home. It don't even have to be a lot. Some major issues at home, and it's affecting professionally, or vice versa.
I think for me, it was more my professional work affecting my personal stuff. I was so stressed out with building my business at a point where I could barely sleep. My weight was all over the place. I was stressed out. It was not good for even my relationships. I was always irritable, and I stopped having an attitude of gratitude. And I always have an attitude of gratitude. I was waking up, thank you, I'm grateful. But I had lost that at one point because I was just so stressed out building a business. I mean, I'm a first generation entrepreneur. My parents didn't come from entrepreneurship or building businesses from scratch. I had to learn everything by myself, through trainings, mistakes, hardships. I remember a time, my first year in business, I had 6 friends. Oh my goodness, 6 friends that hired us to help them with their credit. Long story short, they paid us. We helped them with their credit. They went and bought cars. 30 days later, they went to their banks and filed chargebacks, saying that the charges were fraudulent and that they did not, say that this charge was okay. So long story short, they took the money from my business bank account. My business bank account went into the negative because of thousands of dollars were just deducted from my bank account. And it took me 8 months to recover from that because my merchant account was then shut down too. What that means is I couldn't accept payments from my business. And I couldn't accept payments from my business for nearly 6 months, a little over 6 months, actually. And I was fighting back and forth with the banks, trying to get my money back. I had all my contract signatures, text messages there, all the proof that you could actually need. But it took me 8 months to get that resolved. And I had to live on my credit cards for that time period. I racked up $30,000 of credit card debt that I had to dig myself out of. It was a stressful time in my life. And so, being able to get that back on track, paying off the debt, building my business to where it is now, recovering from that, I'm very grateful for, because I was this close to going back to corporate America, giving up on my dream. And, where would I be then if I would have done that? I would have still been out battling bumper to bumper traffic, being miserable, not seeing my kids. So I would think that was one of the worst situations that I had ever been in. And I hope I never have to go through it again.
What about you, Dr. McKinney?
I'd say for me, I have spent a good portion of my professional life where I've either been leading a team or multiple teams, large teams, and or having a very public persona, where I have to go out and give speeches or speak at conferences or do press conferences or news interviews, things like that. And so, any given day, I have a colleague that sometimes I run into her and, I may tell her how nice she looks and she'll say, "Girl, it was a struggle. Me and my child had a fight this morning. This was the best I could do." But, that's why I say any number of personal experiences affecting your professional life, because you could have just had a bad morning. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, having that very public persona, that was like nearly every day. Just woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Your kid didn't wear what you didn't want to wear, what you had laid out for them to wear. Your spouse acting up, your parents sick, and you're worried about them. You know what I'm saying? But still having to show up at work and put on that face like everything in the world is okay.
Have you ever have either one of you had, see, for me, when I think about it, having to put on that face and doing that over and over and over again, it caused me to literally shut down. I had to shut down. I shut people out. I disappeared. So have you ever had it where it impacted you to the point where you just shut down?
No, not for me. I don't feel like I've ever had the choice to just shut down.
Wow.
Because I've always had to be on
Yeah.
all the time. So for me, I used to say all the time, sometimes I would just have to, lunch break or take a break,
Yeah.
get in my car, hop on the expressway, let the tears roll, listen to some inspirational music, let the tears roll until they stop rolling, turn around and go back and walk in the door like nothing had happened.
How has that impacted your life now? Like just living that way and dealing with things in that way for so long. How has that impacted you
Yeah,
today?
I think I've just grown and learned how to handle situations a little bit better so that it doesn't get to that point,
Yeah.
because it's been enough of those points, or those times where I just had to, take a little drive, or if I couldn't take a drive, you know, just go in the bathroom for a few minutes,
Yeah.
you know,
I agree.
and
That's
not
why.
the bathroom with multiple stalls, the private one person bathroom, and have my moment and then come out,
I think
again.
that's,
And I speak, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
no,
you.
no, no.
I love hearing Jeri's perspective because she is an entrepreneur and she's talking about all of these things from an entrepreneur's perspective. I'm talking about all these things from the perspective of a person who works within a structure,
Yeah.
and where there's always someone looking around the corner trying to see when you go mess up so they can kick you off the cliff and take your spot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Which
kind
is,
of
go ahead, Jeri.
I wouldn't. So the crazy thing is, when I was working in corporate, balancing work, kids, another job, my body would literally shut down. I would get these terrible chest pains and would be rushed to the hospital from work. It happened several times. There was one time I thought I was going to die. I was in the hospital, and I remember waking up in the hospital one day, and they had asked me if I was on drugs. And they had given me something. I think they had given me aspirin or something, and it just made me so drowsy, and my heart rate was declining. It was this weird thing that I had never been through before. But when I went through that the last time at one of my last employers, I said, this ain't it. I can't keep getting rushed to the hospital from work. I can't do that. Something has to give. I quit my job when my employer sent me to DC a couple of weeks before Thanksgiving. I missed Thanksgiving. I missed Christmas. I missed New Year's because I was out in DC helping them get an operation up and running. I was their operations manager, so I was helping them get an operation going because they were losing a lot of money. So they sent me there before Thanksgiving. I came back. Actually, no. What happened was my manager at the time tried to sexually harass me. So I didn't go back to work after that. I actually stayed in my hotel room until I had to go. This happened on a Tuesday. And I got on my flight that Friday. I didn't even go back to work after that. I just told them I was sick. And then I flew back home, went back to work after that. And I started my business. And here we are. But I went through a lot of crazy stuff in corporate that mentally, physically was really driving me crazy.
Yeah, I can completely relate to that. But I also have never, while I was in corporate, I've never had the level of responsibility that Dr. Mckinney has had either, right? And on purpose. I didn't want it. I didn't want it because I knew that the more you grew, you raised in the ranks, the more responsibility you have, the less likely you can walk away. Right. And that's how I feel now, though, Dr. Mckinney, with my business that I have over 100 or so people that I'm responsible for every single day that's looking for my guidance, that's looking for my leadership. There is no room to shut down, but that is also why I prioritize self-care. That's why that's important, because I have gained that wisdom and not allowed myself to burn out because I put everything and everyone first. And I'm working 16, 17-hour days, right? I can't do that. At all. So I love what you guys are sharing. It says, hold on, I'm just trying to see if we have any more comments right here. Love what you guys are talking about. We actually had a letter that came in that I want to read to you guys because I think it's a real thing. Hold on one second. My team just sent it to me. And let's see here. This is regarding, sorry guys. Okay. Says here, okay, this is a letter. Hello, this is a question I'd like to ask for your guests. I'm new to this tier, meaning earning space. I've only been in the 250,000 to 300,000 earning space for about 7 years. With my recent job, I'm now close to $500,000 annually, and I feel like I need a support group. I have anxiety, like how long can I stay here? And what happens if I lose my job? And if I do lose the job, will I be able to get another one that's as good or better than this one? And how can I say no to those who ask me for help when I know I've been blessed? So basically, she's going through a lot of things that people typically go through when they start to earn money. They weren't always there, but they're continually earning money. People asking for handouts, then the fear of losing everything and being placed back, going back to a place that she's worked so hard to come from. So how do you deal with, and this may be, I don't know, Jeri, I want to start with you. How do you deal with this level of anxiety? I feel like we've had this conversation or been involved in these sorts of conversations before.
You know, I believe that what you focus on grows. So if you focus on lack, or if you focus on failure, if you focus on what you don't have or what you don't like, you are going to increase your chances of receiving that. I think, focusing on what you want versus focusing on what you don't want is the better option, because it's easy to drown yourself in the doubts and the self, the confidence that's not quite, it's easy to do. That's the easy thing to do. Instead, catch yourself when you have those thoughts, and you tell yourself you're good enough. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. That's the way I see it. You wouldn't even have made it there. You wouldn't have been offered the job, the opportunity, if you didn't have the skill set, if you didn't have the experience, if you didn't have, what you have right now. So what you have right now is already good enough. So nobody else can take that away from you.
Amen.
So focus on what you want. Don't focus on what you don't want, because what you focus on grows.
Absolutely. And
she is a word.
Man, that's a word. And it's coming in. That is a whole word. What you focus on. And the truth is, like, you've been here for some years now. Like, you're not going nowhere. This is you only going up, and you consistently, but it's this poverty mindset. It's this fear mindset that what if I lose it all?
Yep.
Right? Dr. McKinney, I want you to speak to the piece on saying no to others, because I think you spoke on how, people have come to you for help, and I'm sure it's been that way for a while. So how do you say no to others and not feel bad because you're blessed and you have it?
Well, the first thing is everybody doesn't need to know what you're making. People can't always handle that type of information. And if you let that information out, then everybody's coming. So that's the first thing, you got to learn how to keep some things to yourself. That's number one. Number two, you have to plan for the long game. I was sitting here thinking after Jeri said what you focus on grows, like that's so much of a word. Nothing else needs to be said.
That's right.
But if I were going to say something else, I would say focus on the long game. Yeah. Like, just because you make X amount of money doesn't mean you have to spend X amount of money. You know, in my opinion, reaching income levels like that gives you the opportunity to break generational wealth, generational, poverty, build generational wealth, I should say. Start focusing on those things that ensure your future, you know, your future economic strength,
Mhm.
investments, savings, those types of things.
Yeah.
That is how you make sure that
Yep.
you don't go
Yep.
back to where you were.
Yep.
And call Jeri and make sure your credit is in order. Hello?
Precisely.
Exactly. That would be my answer to her.
Yep. It's not what you make, it's what you keep.
Yes.
Mhm.
So
It's
we're
true.
in closing. Jeri, what's been your greatest takeaway from today's conversation?
I think that it's mostly feeling like I'm not alone. I think that entrepreneurship, or even when you're in executive level type of positions, you can feel alone sometimes. You can feel like it's just me up here and nobody can relate to you. And I was reading once that entrepreneurs suffer the most. And even executive level positions, they suffer the most from depression, anxiety. They suffer from all these negative feelings and emotions consistently because of that alienation that a lot of people feel when they reach that level of success. So it's just that level of feeling I'm not in this by myself. I'm not struggling with this by myself. And knowing that it's a community of us that's trying to get it right I think is a very humbling feeling for me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What about you, Dr. McKinney?
I would say, we've learned lots of lessons over the course of life, over the course of our professions. And we should just remember that the things that we have been through are not unique to us. There are young women coming behind us that will go through the exact same things. So, be a bright light in a young woman's life and, provide some mentorship, some friendship, where you can, and share the lessons that you've learned with those young women so that they don't have to deal with the same types of mistakes that we've made. Everybody's going to make mistakes, but if you can help a young woman avoid a mistake that you've made, recognizing they'll make a different mistake, that's okay. They don't have to make the one you made.
Yes, I love it. I want to thank you guys both for spending time with me this Friday afternoon. I know you're both really busy, so I truly appreciate when people carve out time to share in sisterhood and sharing our journeys with others that are listening in and can get something from our word. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for coming on. I will be in touch with you both soon.
Yay. Thank you
Great.
so
Thank
much,
you.
TeQuila, for having me.
Yes.
For having me.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Dr.
Bye-bye.
McKinney.
So there you have it, you guys. Please drop in the comments. Let me know in these last couple minutes what you took away. What was your greatest takeaway from today's session? Right, from today's executive suite. Drop in the comments, right now. Let me know what were some things that really, really hit home for you. Definitely a relationships journey. And I think that Jeri took the word focus. What you focus on, you will definitely attract and you definitely will become. I appreciated spending this Friday afternoon with you guys and you all staying tuned in with us. Please do not forget to like our YouTube page, subscribe. We have to get to 100 followers or subscribers in order for us to personalize it. So help us out and make sure that you subscribe. Make sure that you visit the Executive Suite, right? To the Executive Suite, and subscribe to our newsletter so that you can always stay up to date with what's going on. If you would like to become a guest on our show, also visit the Executive Suite. This is the information right here, theexecutivesuite.com. Make sure that you go on to that site and fill out the form, and we'll be in touch with you if you qualify. Thank you so much again for spending your Friday afternoon. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.